Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 10. The Lord has brought about our vindication. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17. No weapon that is fashioned against you shall succeed, and you shall refute every tongue that rises against you in judgment. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their vindication from me, declares the Lord. I began 2025 by giving our church 3 prophetic words. First, God will bless the faithful ones in our church with abundant blessings. Second, God will restore to His people the years that the locusts had eaten. Third, 2025 will be a year of vindication. These are the words that I wrote in my first pastoral reflection in 2025. 2025 will be a year of vindication. Justice will be meted out to you. Misunderstanding will be cleared in your favor. Your credibility will be restored. Those who malign you will eat humble pie. Apart from vindication at a personal level, I went on to say, immediately, I also sensed the Lord saying specifically that a certain group of people will be vindicated in 2025. These are the people who have discerned and talk about the shenanigans in the Great Reset, global vaccine mandate, climate change, and decarbonization's agendas. Media control through misinformation and disinformation, and using CBDCs as a control mechanism, they will be vindicated. These Christians believe that the globalist elites are pushing these sinister agendas through global institutions and national governments in their attempt to form a global government. For their belief, these people have been ridiculed and labeled as conspiracy theories. But they will be vindicated. 2025 will be a year of vindication. Well, I'm happy to report that vindication has come. It came earlier than I had expected. In his inauguration speech on the 20th of January 2025, US President Donald Trump declared that he would reverse all US policies that either promote or support these globalist agendas. 3 days later, President Trump spoke virtually at the World Economic Forum annual meeting at Davos, Switzerland. He repeated the same talking points. He called out each of these agendas specifically and said in no uncertain terms that he would dismantle them. To mention all these things in his inauguration speech shows the gravity of these issues and reveals his priority in dealing with them. People who believe that those who call out the Great Reset, climate change agenda, ESG or environmental, social and governance metrics, DEI or diversity, equity and inclusion framework, vaccine mandates, big tech censorship of truths and facts and so forth are lunatic conspiracy theories should think again and re-evaluate their positions on these matters. The new US President and his administration are taking these issues very seriously because they undermine the United States and weaken the West collectively. Trump understands that these woke and ridiculous agendas are attempts by the globalists to usurp power from the ordinary people. I'm interested in politics of this nature because they have eschatological implications. The globalists weaponize speech, media, climate, health, race, gender, money, etc. to control nations and people. These agendas are the building blocks towards the establishment of a global government. This is an attempt to build the Tower of Babel 2.0. Honestly, I never expected that vindication at such a scale would ever happen, but God has graciously granted it. Donald Trump's presidency will severely impede the globalist Tower of Babel 2.0 agenda. It will slow down the momentum of its implementation. However, I do not think that the globalist agenda will be completely derailed. It will falter in the meantime, but it will pick up steam again, perhaps several years later after Trump's term. I see the next 4 years as a window of divine grace. With the expose by Trump, many Christians will hopefully be awakened to the globalist web of conspiracies. Hopefully, they will come to realize that the formation of the Antichrist one world government is a clear and present threat, and hence, Christ's return and the rapture are near. It is time for Christians to wake up to the urgency of the hour. Now, let us consider Trump's speeches during his inauguration and the World Economic Forum regarding various globalist agendas. President Trump said this concerning the climate change and decarbonization agendas. With my action today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great Americans auto workers. In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice. Then, at the World Economic Forum, Trump said, I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate. We're going to let people buy the car they want to buy. The Green New Deal and the Paris Climate Accord are calls to address climate change by using public policies and laws to drastically reduce carbon dioxide emissions arising from human activities and the use of fossil fuels such as oil, gas, and coal. The proponents, which include powerful politicians, influential bankers, and big-time asset managers, claim that global warming is an existential threat. Failure to curb carbon emissions will result in the extinction of the human race. Trump, like many conservatives and discerning Christians, recognize the climate agenda as a globalist political scheme to dictate nations and control people. That is why he slammed it as the Green New Scam, and he promised to pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Accord. Next, Trump created a stir when he declared in his inauguration speech, as of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. At the World Economic Forum, he reiterated his stance on genders, saying, and I've made it official, an official policy of the United States that there are only two genders, male and female. And we will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender operations, which became the rage, will occur rarely. Christians must agree that it is common sense to say that there are only two genders, male and female. In the beginning, God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve or Eve and Judith. While to say that there are only two genders is common sense, you can hardly hear any politicians who are bold enough to say that. Even Asian politicians dare not state the obvious publicly because it is politically incorrect and it will immediately stir the hornet's nest. So, you have to give it to Trump whether you like him or not. He's bold and he has the guts to stand by his belief and convictions. What is so special is that he makes it an official policy of the United States government. It was the US Department of State that pushed the LGBT agenda to many countries through its foreign policy. I'm so glad that President Trump has reversed this profane LGBT policy and restored sanity to sexual morality. DEI stands for Diversity, Equity and Inclusion. Proponents of the DEI framework claim it will ensure that marginalized people will not be discriminated against or excluded from certain fields. Diversity refers to having different races, genders, abilities, ages, religions, etc. Equity refers to fairness, such as ensuring equal pay for equal roles, usually regardless of abilities and performance. Finally, inclusion means having a workplace culture that ensures that everybody feels belong. DEI is a woke ideology, and like all woke ideologies, it is ridiculous. To meet the demands of the DEI standards, organizations are forced to compromise in their employment policies. They have a quota to employ people of different colors and genders, including LGBTs, instead of getting the best people for the jobs. Meritocracy and productivity are sacrificed for the sake of diversity, equity, and inclusion. This ridiculous DEI framework has been imposed on big companies and organizations all across the United States. This included the US military, which in recent years has prioritized employing LGBTs and non-whites over competent warriors just to meet the DEI quotas. The question is why the previous administration did that. The answer is simple, but controversial. That is because they wanted to weaken the nation for an eventual globalist takeover. This is what Trump said in his inauguration speech. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It is going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Then he reiterated the same in his speech at the World Economic Forum. My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory, diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense, and these policies that are absolute nonsense throughout the government and the private sector. Trump is absolutely correct in calling the DEI framework nonsense, like the Green New Deal and the Paris Climate Accord. He knows that the DEI framework works against the corporate and political interests of the United States. DEI is another of the globalist schemes to control nations and people by controlling the big corporations and organizations. Most people have heard of the ESG, or environmental, social, and governance matrix. Both the DEI framework and the LGBT agenda are parts of the social component in the ESG matrix, whereas the climate change and decarbonization agendas fall under the environmental component. Please note that these woke and sustainability initiatives are not innocuous. On the surface, they sound good for humanity, but they serve the sinister agenda of the globalists for global control. President Trump also said during his inauguration, "This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full pay." Trump's statement is an explicit acknowledgement of the COVID-19 vaccine mandate overreach. It is welcomed by millions, not just in the United States, but also around the world, who feel unjustly treated and aggrieved for refusing to take the experimental mRNA vaccines. During the COVID crisis, the vaccine mandate was later followed by the digital vaccine passport idea. The World Health Organization, European Union, and World Economic Forum pushed very hard for it to be rolled out. Many in the West and human rights activists were very concerned about the surveillance and control issues and the infringement on civil liberties. As for me, I was more concerned at that time about how quickly the implementation of such draconian rules and policies would lead to the Antichrist 666 system of total financial control on a global basis. My overarching concern then was with the eschatological implications. Whatever it is, vaccine skeptics feel vindicated by Trump's statement on the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. On a separate occasion, Trump announced pulling the US out of the World Health Organization. He knows of the World Health Organization's shenanigans and close collaboration with the globalists. Trump's action vis-à-vis the World Health Organization is also music to the ears of the conservatives and awakened Christians. Here is another piece of good news. With Robert Kennedy Jr.'s potential appointment as the new U.S. Health Secretary, many conservatives and awakened Christians are hopeful that the globalist vaccine and vaccine passport mandates will be stopped in their tracks. RFK Jr. understands the corrupt practices of Big Pharma and how they have been manipulating national governments and health agencies and also research data to push out experimental and dangerous drugs. I certainly hope that he will be the next US Health Secretary. In the past few years, those who question or challenge the climate agenda, vaccine efficacy and safety, and any of the globalist agendas will be classified as purveyors of fake news. In social media, their posts will be labeled as misinformation and disinformation. If the warnings went unheeded, their social media accounts will be suspended. The US and Western European governments work with big tech to control free speech and the free flow of information. Anything that went against their narratives and hurt their globalist agendas will be summarily censored. Threats were issued to influential dissenters, and some of them had their bank accounts frozen or they were debanked. Trump called out the president of the Bank of America for debanking the conservatives during his question and answer session at the World Economic Forum. So, this is not a conspiracy theory. Donald Trump himself was subjected to the same kinds of treatment during his first presidential term and in between his two presidential terms. Why? Because he's a big threat to the globalists' sinister plan to take control of the world. During his inauguration speech, Trump talked about his plan to stop the weaponization of governmental power to restrict free speech. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. Something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. To those gathered at the World Economic Forum in Davos, he said, on day one, I signed an executive order to stop all government censorship. No longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation and disinformation, which are the favorite words of censors and those who wish to stop the free exchange of ideas and, frankly, progress. We have saved free speech in America, and we have saved it strongly. I'm so glad that the US President and the most powerful man in the world said these words publicly on two important occasions in the first 3 days of his second presidential term. All these things regarding climate change, decarbonization, ESG matrix, DEI framework, vaccine mandate overreach, big tech censorship, truths labeled as misinformation and disinformation, and so forth, that have been previously labeled as conspiracy theories, are actually real conspiracies of the highest order. Thank God for using President Donald Trump to expose all these globalist lies, deceptions, and conspiracies. 2025 is indeed a year of vindication for those who discerned all these shenanigans and spoke out boldly to warn others of the globalist agenda to form the end-time global government. These believers were misunderstood, shamed, and shunned, but now they are vindicated by our God. I echo the words of Jeremiah. The Lord has brought about our vindication. Hallelujah. Amen.